I want to suggest to you that lament is the most forgotten and ignored spiritual practice of our faith. This practice of pouring out what is in our hearts as individuals, but also hearing and seeing and pouring out those social changes that are happening that make us feel like we're strangers in a strange land. Yeah, you know it, don't you? As communities, as changes happen, as new generations do things in new ways, each generation has a lament about the other generation. But if we can actually do the three phases of lament, we move from despair to surrender and acceptance. Have you ever noticed in churches these days that if you think you're going to cry in church, you don't come? If you think your grief is too raw, you don't come? Because somehow you have to always bring your Sunday best to church. That's exactly the opposite of what the psalmist does in these Psalms of Lament. The psalmist believes that God can handle us at our worst, at our most bereft, that God's capacity to be with us is there even when we can't feel it or see it or imagine it or even comprehend it. The spiritual practice of lament, of moving through the three stages, is an antidote to feeling like a victim. It is the process of opening our hearts and finding room for a new perspective. If our souls are filled with how bereft, how aggrieved we are, there is no room. There's the story of the person who came to the wise monk and said, "People keep saying I have to learn this, I have to do this, but how I'm living is okay for me. I don't want to change, I don't want to do anything." And the monk said, "Would you like some tea?" The person said, "Yes." And so the monk handed a cup and saucer and began to pour the tea, and kept pouring and pouring. And the cup came to the front, and the person said, "It's full." And the monk kept pouring and pouring until the cup overflowed into the saucer. And then the saucer overflowed. And the monk said, "When your soul is filled already with your own thoughts, with your own emotions, with your own ideas, there is not room for anything new. And so the Psalm of Lament is an emptying. It is a letting go, a release. It is an openness that somehow our consciousness has to change. I have a good friend who had the perfect family. Children of both genders, and wasn't it great? Upstanding position in the community. She and her husband did everything right. And then their oldest daughter said that she was gay. Well, this couldn't be happening in their family because they had it all and they were doing everything right. And it was a tremendous struggle. And one day, as she was walking to her teaching job, it came to her like a bolt of light. Perhaps her daughter could not change or would not change. Then it would be up to her to change. And when that thought came to her, in the days and weeks that followed, she began to say, "How will I change?" The Psalm of Lament, the practice of lament, is a powerful one if we would use it. If I could make a change in the church calendar or the church year, you know how at Lent we're always supposed to feel downtrodden and like we're so sorry for everything? I would change Lent from "I'm sorry" to regret. I lament what is happening. And we would come out of Lent stronger. Did any of you folks see the video of down in Kentucky of the First Nations person who was drumming and the students taunted the drummer? And the person, one of the students, wearing the colors and the shirt of the Catholic high school to which they belonged, went right into the face of the indigenous man who was drumming. And he stood there, crowding him. And because I was thinking about this sermon, I thought, how long, O God, will indigenous people continue to be taunted? As Mr. Phillips, that Omaha elder, was. How long? There's many things in the life of the world that I want to say, how long will this continue? And perhaps I should. But then not stay there, drawing up all the compassion I have, but moving to what is it I want to ask of God, of myself, of church. Well, it's a brief introduction to this powerful spiritual practice of lament. I hope it gives you something to think about. And that, if you wish, you might write your own psalm of lament for yourself, for the world's issues that burden you, so that at the end you stand stronger, wiser, with more room to breathe. Thanks for listening.